Discovery.
3, 2, 1, 0, 0. Liftoff. Americans return to space as Discovery clears the tower.
Welcome to the Podcast Discovery Show, the podcast that's about other podcasts, where every single week we have a book club style discussion about a podcast. And at the end of the episode, we'll have a brand new recommendation, and we'll talk about that one next week. I'm Kirk.
I'm Zach.
And I'm Matt.
And this week we are talking about my recommendation of the show Wiretap. It's hosted by Jonathan Goldstein, who is great. He was the host of Heavyweight as well, which was one of my... I've listened to every single episode of Heavyweight.
It really is a great show.
But this show is kind of in the same vein, except for he's not like tracking people down. It's more just the conversation part of the show. Remember how he used to do that at the beginning of the Heavyweight, where he has that conversation? It's basically that blown up.
Do you know if that was kind of part of it? If like he either had this as like a little segment on Heavyweight, or if the segment on Heavyweight became this? I don't know.
I don't know the origin of which came first. You know, the chicken or the egg. I don't know which came first. But it's a great show. It's fun. I listened to like, I don't know, 5 or 6 episodes so far. And this is the one that I thought was really entertaining and really fascinating. It is called Radical Honesty. And the guest that week was Starlee Kine. And I remember her name, and I definitely got that, you know, like that familiar feeling when I heard her voice. And the reason is because she had her own Gimlet show called Mystery Show. So she also guested on a bunch of Gimlet shows, but she is a prolific correspondent, or I guess journalist, for This American Life. So she's done a bunch of episodes of This American Life.
That makes sense.
And this episode is her crazy story of joining an almost cult. Kind of.
It sounds culty-ish. I will say I did look up Jonathan Goldstein, and Wiretap was a show on CBC Radio 1 that debuted in 2004 and ended in 2015. And so I don't know if he transferred his old episodes over or if he rebooted this in like the new era, you know, because 04 he would have been like the first person to make a podcast.
Right.
Type thing.
That's insane. So that was on basically Canadian public radio.
I think that's what that is. Yeah. CBC Radio 1. But yeah. And yes, I wasn't really expecting where this show went. I'm kind of just sold on the shows he does. I really enjoy kind of his type of humor.
He's just got such a unique, like dry humor.
And it's also very self-deprecating. Definitely the end of it is hilarious.
Yeah.
I really like that style of humor. I'd say we all do, where it's fun to make fun of yourself because we're all terrible anyways. But the story of this one, we actually listened to this. Kirk and I listened to it together at work today because we like to listen like right before we record type thing. And it was it's kind of funny listening to it with somebody because you're kind of hitting these moments where things start to get dumber and dumber, and you're like, what is happening right now?
Yeah, I was listening with my girlfriend and I kept having to pause it because we're like, wait, what? What? This was a wild ride. I thought I was going the route of like, and then I found Radical Honesty, and it's kind of a cool concept.
It changed
and then goes
my life.
into that. Yeah. But nope.
That is not the direction it went. Also, I did do a little bit of background research on this. I literally Googled the words radical honesty, and it came up with something. And throughout this episode, they talk about someone named Brad, and he is front and center on this website. So if you would like to see that, you can Google yourselves, or if you want to check out the show notes, you can find out more. But from what I can understand, it is a self-helpy type thing. It looks like Brad's first book, if this is all connected. I can't tell if this is the Brad she was talking about. You guys can even take a look at this link.
I feel like it has to be. I'm looking at it. It has to be,
right? But his first book, Radical Honesty, How to Transform Your Life by Telling the Truth, became a bestseller in 96. And so he hasn't put out anything recently at all. Everything he did was kind of like, it's kind of that typical thing where they like add the same kind of catchphrase on every single book, and they put out 4 of basically the same book, and they make a bunch of money, and then that's it.
Radical honesty for children.
Yeah, no, there is one. Radical parenting.
There is?
Radical parenting.
I was
7
kidding.
steps to a functional family in a dysfunctional world.
Oh my God.
It's like, tell your kid they're fat. That's how you do it. That's how you make them feel good. You got to be. And I will say that when I hear the word radical honesty, to me, that's like something that somebody who is already going to be a dick, that's what they say they're doing so that they feel good about it.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know? So they're like, oh, well, I'm doing something good with my life here.
Well,
so I'm going
it's
to be
like
a dick to you.
it's synonymous with like the suffix of your sentence going, am I right? Am I wrong? Am I wrong? It's the
Wait, but
it's
am
the
I wrong?
guy in, yeah, it's the
it's
Big Lebowski guy. Yeah.
You're not wrong, Donnie. You're just an asshole.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, damn. And after seeing the picture of this guy, I'm like, okay.
Or
that's
Walter,
not
it wasn't
far
Donnie.
off. Yeah.
Did you see, Zach, what he describes himself as in that thing that you sent me? Dr. Brad Blanton describes himself as white trash with a PhD.
God.
That's the way he describes himself.
He's just so radical honesty to this man is just roasting. Like he's roasting himself, everyone around him. Like it's a roast master general.
Roast.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's all kind of just they spruced up. They're just going to be a dick to you.
Yeah.
It's like saying that like you care so much about equality that you want to specifically beat up women. It's like I'm a radical feminist, so I'm going to beat up women because I would do it to men too. You know, it's like they go. It's an extreme that's not actually a real thing. Because I don't think anybody argues with the idea that honesty's good, but that doesn't mean that you have to be rude to people your entire life. You have to say every random stupid thought that pops into your head.
There's honesty, and then there's like diplomacy and just decency. You know.
Well, even with how he describes himself, white trash with a PhD, it's like you don't have to say white trash. Like you could say like a down to earth guy with a PhD. Like that's the same thing.
No, this guy definitely seems like he wants to be edgy. You know what I mean? That's what I'm picking up off.
Yeah.
And I honestly need to make him stop looking at me. I need to get rid of the screen. It's
same.
Because he's just like
he's doing like looking over his glasses at you.
And it made all of us feel uncomfortable. But the reason we say this is because the story in this episode is
about how Starly got uncomfortable.
Yeah, she walks in and was immediately uncomfortable because this guy wasn't wearing a shirt. And thank God that's not happening on the website. I would definitely have closed it way sooner if he was just shirtless staring at me.
I just love how they didn't advertise to the people that are signing up for this retreat or whatever you want to call it, whatever it was called. It was pitched as like, okay, we're going to go meet at a convention center and we'll stay at a hotel nearby. And then, I'll go back to work. It was at his house in the middle of like Podunk, Virginia. And there was other people there, and she paid what was $1,000 or $2,000? It was over $1,000. Yeah. I thought it was maybe $2,000. $2,000 to stay at this dude's house in his kid's bedroom. And it sounded very uncomfortable. I'm not even a female, and I would be super uncomfortable with this, with the way that everything went down. It definitely gets to the place
where, it's wild. And it looks like this is still available. You can still do the 8-day intensive daily schedule. And he doesn't mention yelling at you while shirtless throughout the day.
He doesn't mention sweaty hugs.
I don't know if you have to, naked work. Around the 5th day, we all get naked, one at a time. We stand in front of the group and we talk about what we like and don't like about our body and tell our sexual histories. This guy...
Wait, that he still does that?
This is on his website.
Oh,
no, this is part of the experience of the 8-day thing.
Well, we'll get to that part. The thing that was like the straw that broke the... Oh, no.
We video each person and watch the video as a group the next day. The naked work is generally anything but sexy. I like how he says that. Like he's like, oh, don't worry, I'm not a pervert. But trust me, I'm a pervert. Rather, this is powerful work of going through and getting over the shame, embarrassment, and suffering around our bodies and sexuality.
I'm not a pervert, but I do have
But by the way,
500 videotapes behind me of naked people.
I keep those videotapes to learn.
Oh, man.
Man,
All right. Well, so
I'm sorry to distract. That's a real thing. That's that's on his website.
We're learning more about the radical honesty cult of personality that this guy apparently has.
It is approximately $3,000, so everybody might need to save up for that, because I think that would be a great PDS retreat.
There's on the resources tab of the website too. There's a radical honesty support circle, and I like to imagine that that's support circle for people that have gone through the radical honesty thing.
It's like a survivors group.
Yeah, it's just built in, inherent vice right in there.
Oh, man.
I'm sorry I got so distracted, but this is on his website. That's the thing is like...
No, that's crazy. Like, I figured that was, a one-time thing where he's like, all right, now we're all going to get naked, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then someone finally was like, that's probably not a good idea.
No, that's literally part of the experience. That's day 5. But that's when she noped out of there. When he's like, "Oh no, it's because he tried to move." Okay, we won't. We'll wait. We'll
bury the lead. Bury the lead.
We don't need to give the play-by-play. Let's just talk about the highlights, the things that we enjoyed. So first of all, it was crazy that it's at this dude's house. She's staying in his kid's bedroom, and there's other people there. And it was kind of funny because she said that she was like the last one there. Like everyone had been there for a little bit. So she was a new person, and they did like basically the AA type meeting where they're like, "Hi, my name's Starly Kine, and but they started going around and sharing their deep, dark secrets, and that was one of my favorite parts of the whole story.
That
is
definitely one of the parts where I just kept looking at Kirk like, what is happening?
So Matt, was this one of those places that you paused the show and you're like, wait, what?
I had to talk to Carlin about it.
Let me think. Yes. Yeah, very much so. When the first it really was a good rule of threes of comedy. This entire thing. It's like we first met this man who told us that he's murdered someone when he was
slightly
younger.
Murdered somebody.
Yeah. Pushed him out of a truck. And then that guy got hit by a car. And everyone's like, oh. And then the next lady's like, I frequently have sex with my cat.
But not to be outdone.
Yeah. Excuse me. I like to do some funny stuff with my cat. Make out, do a little heavy petting.
I was seriously just like, wait, is everybody just going to admit that they have done weird stuff to cats? Like, what is happening right now?
Yeah, I imagine looking around the room, everybody's nodding their heads like, yeah, we've been there. Yeah.
I was so distracted by what they said. I can't even remember what her thing was that enraged him. She said something normal.
That she buys things that she shouldn't buy.
She overshops.
Yeah. She overshops when she really shouldn't get it.
Damn it, did you hear them just say they had sex with a cat? That's the type of honesty I'm looking for.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love how she's like, he was clearly looking for something that I have done that was absolutely dark and at the depths of humanity, like all ubiquitous within our dark hearts and souls. And she's like, I don't know, I shop too much. I've never killed a guy. Like, what do you want?
I don't even have a cat.
Let us open up. What are some radical honest things that we want to share? I'll go first to let you guys think about yours. One year I realized that it was the day before Mother's Day and I hadn't gotten anything, and this was fairly early internet. And so what I did is I Googled a poem and then I hand wrote it on a card, and my mother loved it so much she cried and she framed it. She had it at her work for years before I told her it was plagiarized.
I love the idea that it's like, oh, Captain, my captain. Like, it's a very, like, two roads diverged in the woods.
I was going to say, the road less traveled.
Yeah.
Footprints in the sand.
Footprints in the sand. Like, this seems so familiar.
Oh my
Oh,
God.
I'm trying to think. I feel really on the spot now.
Yeah, I'm going to pull a Brad Blanchard and be like, that's not good enough. I want murder.
I haven't murdered anyone.
I mean, I got one. I was in Virginia and I was walking. They have a lot of paths everywhere in Reston, and I got lost, and I really had to go to the bathroom, so I took a jump in the woods. Not very woody. It was like that was mine, and it was very embarrassing. But I got back to it was my girlfriend's from Reston, and I was staying with her family, so it was like, well, I'm gonna hop in the shower.
Yeah.
Got a little lost. Don't ask me anything.
I'm trying.
A satin chocolate.
I'm really trying
Yeah.
to. I mean, I definitely sharded myself when I was a kid. I was so embarrassed I threw my underwear away. But then also, I'm trying to. This is a hard question. Just off the, I would have gotten yelled at by Brad. He would have taken his shirt off and tried to wrestle me or whatever he does.
Well, he
couldn't
called
think of
her
one
something
till-
that was bleeped, and I don't know what he actually called her.
Yeah, no, he was
Sure, it
enraged
was
by
super
her
honest.
terrible answer. Yeah, that's what I'm guessing. But yeah, he called her that the whole rest of the time, I guess.
So funny the way she nonchalantly kept bringing up that he was calling her that. Like, oh yeah, the day started with breakfast and a few of those words.
No, and I think it was literally just because there was something that he felt like she wasn't breaking out
Yeah.
like any good
Like
stories or
opening
whatever.
up enough.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the other thing. The first thing that was like her huge no moment was he's like, okay, I'm going to make you become radically honest. Sign this contract. You have to do everything I say for the next 8 days. Exactly. And she's like, no, like that's ridiculous. And then he just continued to berate her until basically she went upstairs and got Stockholm syndrome immediately.
Yeah,
And then
pretty
came
much
back.
immediately. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, I'll sign it. Like, whoa, what?
I had time to think about it. This seems fine. But luckily she didn't full commit. She just she was just in there for the ride.
That does have to be super uncomfortable though. If like you were driven somewhere, you don't have it's not, you know, in the middle of a city or somewhere where it's easy to just like walk away or get a car. You don't have your own car. Like that's gotta feel like you gotta feel a little bit trapped in a way, you know? And, you know, the barrier to leave is probably a little bit higher than most scenarios. It's uncomfortable. I don't know. I don't know what I would do. I'm trying to think of like what I would do.
I mean, right now I'd walk out and get an Uber. But if it was time before that, you know, then you're kind of just stuck somewhere random.
I think this does kind of date it a little bit because I had no idea when this was recorded. Because you know they don't mention it, and it doesn't like. There's not a lot of things that you can pinpoint, but she talks about calling a taxi service.
It took like an hour to get there, and I mean he could be super remote because then even if you try and get an Uber, it's going to take a while to get there. But yeah, calling a taxi makes it pre-Uber. Pre-Uber world. But yeah, then he continues to berate her and be mean to her. And what was the last straw was Naked Day, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, he actually expedited Naked Day for her specifically. I think that was part of the problem is it wasn't like the whole group's getting naked together and doing this weird thing. And honestly, I don't really know it's better. It's slightly better though, because at least everybody's doing it and you could be like, okay. But he was like, I'm going to do you a favor. We're moving Naked Day up. And she's like, see you later. No,
but I think it's funny that she called the taxi service and she's like, I just want to get out of here because they all want me to get naked. And so the taxi service calls the cops. So the cops show up and
she had to choose.
And I do love that. She even mentioned, she's like, I kind of felt like guilty that the cops were there. She's like, it's legal. He's allowed to do this because I signed a contract. You know, it's like she's like you said, it's basically Stockholm syndrome, and she's like giving justifications as to why everyone's allowed to be naked, and against their will and stuff. I don't know. It's the whole thing is just a crazy story.
I think that for the most part, it's not against their will. Like, I think for the most part, people want to do this because and it's kind of that trap of all of the self-help stuff. You know, people dive in deep because they find some kind of like catharsis in whatever the thing is. You know, I'm sure it's happened with a wide variety. I mean, Josh Brolin burned his tank because he read it on the internet that it was going to enhance your chakra if you get sun directly into your body. You know?
Oh, yeah. I forgot that was a butthole tanning or whatever it was for a little while.
I think it had some kind of better marketing on it than just butthole tanning, but that is what
Brolin?
it was. Yeah, 100%. He tried it out. And for anybody considering trying it out, don't. That part of your body is not normally exposed to sunlight, and it's going to be painful for you. I'm going to look up the
Josh Brolin's butthole.
Oh, I've already seen that. It's bookmarked. Hold on one second.
Deep in the search.
No, what I wanted to figure out is I do think that there's probably some people who love this. And first of all, I would say that there is I would say probably 80%. I'm not going to like being around the people who love this book. You know what I mean? I'm sure there's some people who are great and very caring, but just love being honest and found some like peace in this. But I think the vast majority are people I don't want to be around. So I wanted to take a look at what the book. What were you saying, Matt?
Well, I was going to say, I feel like that's how cults start. Is you learn something that makes you not enjoyable to be around other people, and then the only people you can be around are the people that also do that same exact thing. So then it's like, okay, now we're our only friends. Because we all radical honest.
I think the tricky part of this is I think there probably is something to everybody has to put on like a persona. You know, everybody has to at some extent, you know, they have to like do things in their life that's not just like them doing everything they want to do in that moment, them saying everything they want to say, them just being their truest self. And so this is like the polar opposite of this, where you are ignoring all of that. But some of that I feel like is just society. You know, we all act a certain way because we're in a society. We're with other people.
Wow, that was deep.
I don't know if it was or not, but here's something deep. Here's an Amazon review for this book. 0 stars, written by a pretentious douchebag.
Okay.
I'm just going to go with some titles of the reviews. Some interesting points, but narcissistic and flawed. That was a 2-star. 1 star. Do not buy this on audiobook. I guess he read it in his basement naked. But here's another one. Healing, inspiring, and beautiful. Give yourself the gift of radical honesty. You deserve it. Then back to 1 star. Bad advice unless you like hurting people. That's what I'm talking about. 1 star.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like you said, Zach, and I've seen people like this where they're like, I just tell the truth, you know, and usually that's just a cop out for like, I'm a racist, or I hate everyone, or like I'm just a dick. Like that's what the excuse is for those kind of people is I'm just honest, you know? And this is radical.
I think honesty is great. I think radical honesty is ridiculous.
Yep. Regular honesty is great.
It's great. I love it. Huge fan.
I love it.
Just don't radicalize it.
Yeah, don't radicalize.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Radicalize anything.
Yeah, it's all bad.
Be you. No good.
No good. 2 thumbs down.
But in general, I love the show. We're just talking about kind of the contents of the show. The show was a joy to listen to. It's really great. And I honestly love there's something about that kind of format. Because Heavy was the same way. What was the one? Confession Line? What was the one? It was like one of the first ones Matt and I did together. I cannot remember.
Where people could call in?
Yeah. The apology. The apology line.
That was it.
Oh, yeah. That's I like this format of shows. There's something about it that I find really interesting. And so it's a really good show. Heavyweight's a great show. He's just a really good storyteller. And then honestly, he didn't get 2 words in until the end where he got roasted by his friend.
Yeah. So I guess that's kind of like a little bit of a recurring segment where his friend comes on and they kind of talk about what the show was about. And he was radically honest about all the things that he hated about Jonathan.
He was extremely honest.
I think the funniest part was when Jonathan's like, okay, well, I'm going to be honest with you for a little bit. And he says like 3 things. And the other guy's like, hey, truce.
Yeah. oh God.
He's like, this is a bad idea. He's like, let's make fun of our friend that's not here.
Yeah.
let's be honest about him. That was fun.
Yeah. No, it really is a great show, and I really enjoyed it. But yeah, it's super interesting to look into weird culty groups of people doing weird stuff and subjecting other people to it.
I don't know why, but I've always found stories about cults fascinating because, why do people like follow these things? Like I've always found it fascinating. I'm not saying I want to be in one or anything like that. I've always thought the psychology, but the same reason like that I think that some serial killer stories are fascinating. It's the psychology behind it. It's just like so far from what I can understand that it's fascinating.
I feel slightly offended. I haven't even been like invited to a cult. I feel like I should at least be invited, even though I don't really want to be in one.
Maybe you have been, but you're like, that sounds lame. You're like, oh, drinks with a bunch of these losers.
No, by the way, I have found a podcast that is specifically about things that sound like cults. So they have a lot, and I haven't found the episode that I want to recommend yet, but like they did one on what's the fitness thing? The
CrossFit?
CrossFit. Yeah. I did not that is 1000% very much like a cult. It's not, but it's very much like one. But that's what their show's about. It's not an actual cult, but it's things that very much cultish.
Honestly, the ones
followings.
That surprised me are the best. Like in Tiger King, where that weird ponytail guy had a tiger sex cult.
Oh my gosh.
That one, man. I was like, what? Of course he has a tiger sex cult and he gets all his employees breast implants. This is insane.
The only thing I haven't watched yet is his private story that he did, that they did on him on Netflix.
That guy will be in jail one day.
He has to be, right?
Yeah. No,
or at least should be, probably.
That's some weird shenanigans he's up to over there.
Yes.
Well, enough about perverts. I have a recommendation for next week. This is a pretty cool one. It's called Ongoing History of New Music. It's hosted by Alan Cross, and it is kind of the perfect thing for us because it's about music, but you learn a ton throughout it, like really cool little tidbits that you wouldn't have thought of before. So I have a couple of these I'm going to do because they're only about 25-minute episodes. And so there's 2 of them that I found that were kind of a really cool 1-2 type thing. And the episodes are music questions people almost never ask, and then 9 amazing things about your brain and music. But he also does tons of deep dives on like specific bands, about these crazy moments and like huge pop culture history things. It's just really a deep dive on kind of the more obscure stuff in music, and I think you guys are gonna like it.
This was a podcast from the Podfix Network. You can check out more shows like it at podfixnetwork.com.